Hello, welcome. Today I'm going to be reviewing and going over every single card in Dominion Adventures. Now, I actually did Dominion Adventures quite a while ago, but I decided to redo it since I have a tripod now. I probably won't do that with all of the expansions, but I felt that this expansion was definitely due for an upgrade. So that's what we're going to be doing for this video. We're going to be looking at every single card in Dominion Adventures and talking about them and reviewing them. And, mentioning if they're really good cards or if they're not really good cards. In fact, the first card we're going to do is the only card in the entire expansion I absolutely hate. So let's get that one out of the way first. Let's get started. So this is the first card. It's called Raise. I don't like this card at all, but let's just kind of talk about it real quick. Well, you get an extra action, and if you ask me, that's the only really good thing about the card, is that you're not wasting an action playing this card. But it is kind of a waste, if you ask me. So you'll either trash this, or a card from your hand, and then look at a number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the cost in treasure of the trashed card. You'll put one into your hand, and you'll discard the rest. So, let's say you were to trash the Raise. If you used the Raise's effect to trash it, you would get to draw 2 cards from your deck. You'd get to keep one to put into your hand, and the other one would get discarded. Now, if you were to trash a higher treasure or a higher costing card, and like a 5 or a 4, you could draw a lot of cards, but you're still only going to get 1 card, and then the rest get discarded. Which is kind of annoying, because most of the good cards that you won't probably want to trash anyways, and then obviously you could use this to trash something like, a Wasteland or a Copper, but if you did that, you get nothing at all anyways. So the only good thing about it is it gives you a plus action. And if it was the only way to trash cards in the game and you needed to get rid of your coppers, or if you needed to get rid of your estates, it might be somewhat useful if it was the only card that let you trash cards. But still, out of a lot of the cards that let you trash cards, this one still isn't that great of a card, if you ask me. And that's why I don't like it. I think it's a waste of a buy. So, anyways. So now that unpleasantness is out of the way of mentioning the card that I absolutely hate, why don't we start going over the cards that I absolutely love from this expansion? Alright, so here we have Duplicate and Lost City. These are 2 of my favorite cards in this expansion. And I went ahead and picked 5 of my favorites, although it was hard to choose because I like a lot of the cards in this expansion. So we're going to start with Duplicate. And when you play with a reserve card, because the Duplicate is a reserve card, you will be playing with this, the Tavern Mat, as well. And so what do you do with the Duplicate when you first play it? Well, you simply put this onto your Tavern Mat. That's what you do. That's your action. You put it on your Tavern Mat. Now you're probably thinking, well, why would you do that? I mean, wasting action doing that. It's true that it might be a waste, and there are times when you might not want to do that because it would mess up your strategy. But there are times when you'll definitely want to get a Duplicate onto your Tavern Mat. Now, what this does is, after you gain a card costing up to 6, you may call this to gain a copy of that card. So let's say you gained a gold. Well, you could duplicate it by calling this, which means you take this card off your Tavern Mat, it goes into your discard pile, and you just duplicated the gold. So instead of having 1 gold, you got 2 golds. Now, one of the reasons why I love this card so much is it works really well with a strategy I like to call the Duchy Run. And so what happens is I will get a bunch of duplicates for the sole purpose of getting duchies. because after all, you can get any card costing up to 6, and Duchy costs 5. So you can get a bunch of these duplicates onto your tavern mat, and then towards the end of the game, when there isn't going to be very many turns left, maybe 1 or 2 turns per player at most, what I like to do, or especially if the provinces are almost gone, if there's like 3 left, there's 3 or 4 provinces left, I do the Duchy run. I buy a Duchy, and then sometimes I'll have like 4 or 5 of these duplicates sitting on my tavern mat. Then I'll get a ton of extra victory points, and maybe it will even put me in the lead. Who knows? So that is why I like this card so much. It's a really cool card with that strategy. Duplicate. Alright, let's move on. Now, my second favorite card is Lost City. It's a pretty simple card. You just get 2 cards, you get 2 actions, which is really nice. That's really nice. I like that. 2 actions and 2 cards. And then when you gain this, each other player draws a card. So the other players will get a benefit whenever you happen to buy this or gain this, which is pretty cool. Everyone else gets to draw a card. So I really like the Lost City. It's a good card all around. Let's move on. Next we have Storyteller and Giant. Well, Storyteller is kind of a copper strategy, and so I really like copper strategies. So let's go over this card. With this one, you'll get a plus action, and you'll get a plus treasure. But then you'll play up to 3 treasures from your hand. You'll pay all of your treasure, and then you'll get plus 1 card per treasure paid. So that's really cool. So if you did it with 3 coppers, for instance, you would get to draw 3 cards. You could also technically draw 4 cards because you could use the treasure from Storyteller as well to draw 4 cards, and then you get an action. That's really awesome. It's a good way of getting better cards using your coppers for sure. And so the Storyteller is definitely one of my favorites. Then we have the Giant. And whenever you play with the Giant, you'll also play with this corresponding token, the Boot, or what is known as the Journey token. So, with the Giant, you'll turn over your Journey token over. It starts face up, which is where it is. If it's face down, plus 1 treasure. So you play this card, it starts face up in the beginning of the game. This is the first time you played it, and you didn't play any other card that works with this Journey token. You'll flip it, and now it's face down. When it's face down, you just get plus 1 treasure. And so when that happens, you can consider the Giant as sort of a gentle giant. But then the next time you play the Giant, assuming you didn't play some other card that works with the Journey token, you'll flip the Journey token again. If it's face up, plus 5 treasure. And each other player reveals the top card of his deck, trashes it if it costs from 3 to 6, and otherwise discards it and gains a wasteland. So that is really powerful. You get a lot of treasure, a lot of money, and you can trash one of your opponent's cards from 3 to 6 if any of those cards were in the equation, and if they didn't have any cards that were revealed from 3 to 6, like if it was copper or an estate or something like that, then they would just discard the cards. And they would just discard the card, and they would gain a curse or a wasteland. And so that is really cool. It's a very powerful card, and even still hurts your opponent, even if there's nothing for the Giant to trash, which is really cool. And then you get plus 5 treasure. And that's why it's so powerful, why you can only do it once every other time you play the Giant do you get this awesome, powerful card, which is really cool. Alright, now for my favorite card in the entire expansion. It's known as the Bridge Troll. Each other player takes his -1 coin token, which is going to be this token. So each other player who's obviously not playing the Bridge Troll at that moment, will get this token. Now and at the start of your next turn, plus 1 buy. So the player who's playing the Bridge Troll, they're going to get a plus buy at the start of their turn, next turn, and they're also going to get the plus buy now. Then, while this is in play, cards cost 1 treasure less on your turns, but not less than 0. So the turn you play this, Bridge Troll, cards are going to cost 1 less. On your next turn, cards are going to cost 1 less, because this is a duration card, and so it will still be in play until the end of your next turn. Then it won't be in play after that, which is why it's so powerful and cool. And then, because it's an attack card as well, your opponents are going to get this token. And what this does is when you get treasure, get 1 less and lose this. So let's say your opponent on their turn, they had 8 treasure. They're going to buy a province, but they have this token here. Well, they have to lose 1 of their treasure to remove this, and so now they only have 7 treasure, and obviously that's not enough to buy a province. And so that's really cool. I like that attack card a lot. I like this token a lot. And it is definitely my most favorite card in the whole expansion. Now we have Ratcatcher and Coin of the Realm. Now these are both reserve cards, and so you will need the Tavern mat as well. And we'll just put it there on the side. Okay, so with the Ratcatcher, you'll get a draw card, you'll also get +1 action, and then you'll put this onto your Tavern mat. That's what that does. You'll just put it onto your Tavern mat. Then at the start of your turn, so it could be the next turn, or it could be a future turn, but at the start of your turn, you may call this to trash a card from your hand. And that's why it's a really interesting card. The Ratcatcher always catches his rat, because after all, you'll know what's in your hand at the start of your turn. If this is sitting on your Tavern mat, it's an easy way to get rid of cards you don't want, which is really cool. So the Ratcatcher is a pretty nice card. Then we have Coin of the Realm. Well, this one is a treasure card. So basically, when you play it, you get a treasure just like you would copper. You get 1 treasure. Then when you play this, you'll put it onto your Tavern mat. So we'll put this on the Tavern mat. Then, directly after resolving an action, you may call this for +2 actions. So that's really awesome. If you're running out of actions and you have some Coin of the Realms, or at least 1, sitting on your Tavern mat, you'll get some extra actions if you need it, which is really cool. I like this card a lot. Now, obviously, when you play it, it will be during your buy phase, and so you won't be getting the extra actions on the turn that you play it. But on your next turn, obviously, if you want to call it to get the extra actions, it will be here waiting for you, which is really cool. And then you'll just take it off the Tavern mat when you call it, and it will go to your discard pile. Same thing with the Ratcatcher. When you call the Ratcatcher, it will go to the discard pile. Okay, so we have Caravan Guard and Amulet now. With Caravan Guard, you'll get a card, you'll get an action, and at the start of your next turn, you'll get +1 treasure. When another player plays an attack card, you may play this from your hand. +1 action has no effect if it's not your turn. So why this card is so interesting and so powerful, is if you have this in your hand and somebody plays an attack card, doesn't matter what the attack card is, if it's an attack card, you can simply reveal this from your hand, and then you can play it from your hand on their turn. What you're going to get when you do that? Well, you play it, you get the card, so you're going to replace it with another card from your deck, and then at the start of your next turn, because this was a duration card and it was sitting, in play for your next turn, you're going to get that +1 treasure. So it's really cool. You're going to start your next turn off with an additional treasure. You're going to have an extra card in your hand, which may or may not be a good thing. And then the only thing that you won't get is the +1 action, which is still a really good card nonetheless, because you're not wasting an action to play it anyways, and you get the free treasure at the start of your next turn. Plus, who knows what that next card will be. And so Caravan Guard is a really cool action, duration, reaction card, for sure. Then we have Amulet. Now, and at the start of your next turn, choose one. +1 treasure, or trash a card from your hand, or gain a silver. So when you play this on your turn, you can get an extra treasure for your turn, you can trash a card from your hand, or you can gain a silver. And then on your next turn, at the start of it, you're going to have the same options once again. So you might mix and match, but that's the amulet. Next we have Dungeon and Gear. Now with the Dungeon, you're going to get a plus action when you play this card. And then now and at the start of your next turn, plus 2 cards, and then discard 2 cards. So on the turn you play it, you might have cards you want to discard. And it might be worth it to get 2 extra cards, of course. But of course you're going to get the 2 cards first, which also could be cards you want to discard anyways, which is still a pretty nice card. But at the start of your next turn, you're forced to do it once again. And so you might not have cards you want to discard. And so that's why it's not the best card in the world. Then we have Gear. With this one, you'll get plus 2 cards, and then you'll set aside up to 2 cards from your hand face down. At the start of your next turn, you'll put them into your hand. So you get 2 extra cards, then you can set aside up to 2 cards from your hand face down, and save them for your next turn, basically. And you get to put them into your hand at the start of your next turn. So that's a pretty cool card too. Gear is a pretty nice card, for sure. Alright, one more card for this video, and then we'll continue on in the next video with more cards. So here we have the guide. With this one, you'll get plus 1 card, you'll get plus 1 action, and then you put this on your tavern mat. So let's put it on the tavern mat. At the start of your turn, you may call this to discard your hand and draw 5 cards. So let's say somebody attacks you with a militia, you only have 3 cards for your hand, and they're not that great. You could use the guide to basically give you a hand by discarding that hand and giving you 5 cards, which might be better. Or maybe you have 5 cards in your hand, but they're not that great. You can't really do much with them. And so the guide could be very helpful in that case as well, and which is why this is still a pretty nice card, even if you're not playing with an attack card like Militia. The guide. And then, of course, when you call it, you'll discard it from... You'll basically put this in your discard pile like normal. Alright, that's it for this video. We'll see you guys in the next video.